Beyond simple tidiness, arranging belongings into designated spots brings certain individuals a fulfillment that extends far beyond visual appeal. They find themselves drawn to the activity repeatedly, not because external pressure demands it, but because something internal responds to the process with genuine pleasure. The act of putting things in their proper locations generates a feeling that resembles accomplishment, relief, and contentment combined into a single experience. This attraction to organizing carries psychological weight that casual observers frequently overlook. Those who dismiss it as mere preference for cleanliness miss the deeper mechanisms operating beneath the surface. The brain engages with organizing activities in ways that affect mood, reduce tension, and create measurable shifts in emotional state. Understanding these mechanisms reveals why certain people return to organizing again and again, while others find the same activities tedious or pointless. The psychology behind this preference involves multiple interconnected systems working together. Neurological reward pathways activate when tasks reach completion. Stress hormones decrease when visual environments shift from disordered to structured. Emotional processing finds an outlet through physical movement and tangible results. These biological realities explain why organizing produces effects that feel restorative rather than merely practical. For those who experience this pull toward putting things in place, the motivation rarely centers on impressing visitors or meeting social expectations. The drive comes from within, responding to internal needs that organizing uniquely addresses. A kitchen with every utensil in its designated drawer feels different to inhabit than one with items scattered across counters. A bedroom with made linens and clear surfaces invites rest in ways that cluttered spaces cannot replicate. This document explores what happens psychologically when someone feels genuine enjoyment. From creating order in their living environment, it examines the connection between external surroundings and internal emotional states, the neurological processes that make organizing rewarding, and the various psychological needs that this activity addresses. The goal is to illuminate why this common behavior carries significance that its simplicity might otherwise obscure. Those who love organizing their homes often struggle to articulate why the activity appeals to them so strongly. They know the feeling but lack the framework to explain it. Chapters that follow provide that framework, drawing on psychological research and neurological science to reveal what makes this seemingly mundane activity so deeply rewarding for those who feel its pull. Order calms the mind during periods when circumstances spiral beyond personal influence and outcomes remain uncertain. The act of arranging physical belongings offers something valuable. It provides an arena where results respond directly to effort, where actions produce visible and immediate outcomes. This connection between doing and seeing creates psychological stability that abstract thinking cannot provide. The mind processes environmental disorder as unfinished business requiring attention. Every item sitting outside its designated location registers as a small task awaiting completion. These micro-demands accumulate beneath conscious awareness, creating a background hum of mental activity that drains cognitive resources. Organizing silences that hum by resolving each small demand one at a time until the environment stops pulling at attention. Neurological research confirms what organizers instinctively know. Completing small tasks activates dopamine pathways, engaging neurotransmitter systems associated with reward and motivation. Each drawer organized, each surface cleared, each item returned to its proper location communicates to the brain that something worthwhile has been accomplished. These signals accumulate throughout an organizing session, producing a cumulative sense of achievement that exceeds what the individual tasks might seem to warrant. This explains why people often turn to organizing during periods of emotional difficulty, following tense conversations with loved ones during stretches of professional uncertainty, or when facing decisions that lack clear answers. The urge to sort through belongings or restructure living spaces frequently emerges. The activity provides something that the emotional situation cannot offer: a problem with a solvable structure and a visible endpoint. Psychologists recognize this pattern as managing emotional states through physical action. When internal experiences feel overwhelming or unmanageable, doing something concrete with the hands and body offers relief that thinking alone cannot produce. The tangible nature of organizing provides proof of capability and effectiveness during moments when those qualities feel absent from other areas of life. The relationship between external environments and internal states runs deeper than most people recognize. A room shifting from cluttered to organized does not merely look different, it feels different to occupy. The visual information entering the eyes communicates order rather than disorder, completion rather than incompletion, and capability rather than overwhelm. The brain reads these signals continuously and adjusts emotional tone accordingly. Those who love organizing have discovered this relationship through repeated experience, even if they have never articulated the connection in psychological terms. Where calm lives, a structured living environment communicates continuously with deeper layers of awareness that operate beneath conscious thought. The brain interprets physical surroundings as information about current circumstances, and organized spaces deliver messages of stability and security that disordered ones cannot provide. Clutter functions as visual static that the mind must continuously process and evaluate. Each object sitting where it does not belong represents an unresolved matter, a decision not yet made, a task not yet addressed, even when conscious attention focuses elsewhere. Background cognitive processes continue monitoring these environmental irregularities. This persistent low-level processing consumes mental bandwidth and contributes to feelings of tension that may seem to arise from nowhere. Individuals who feel strongly drawn to organizing often experience this environmental sensitivity more acutely than others. A stack of papers on a counter or clothes draped over a chair registers not as neutral background but as active disturbance. Their nervous systems respond to visual disorder with subtle but measurable increases in stress hormones. The discomfort they feel in cluttered spaces reflects genuine physiological responses rather than arbitrary preferences. Creating order in living spaces directly addresses these physiological responses. As items find their designated locations and surfaces clear, the visual field simplifies and the brain receives fewer inputs, demanding evaluation. The constant background processing diminishes, freeing cognitive resources for other purposes. Stress hormones decrease as the environment stops communicating incomplete tasks and begins communicating resolution instead. This explains why returning home to an organized space feels fundamentally different from returning to a cluttered one. The organized environment permits the nervous system to downshift into recovery mode rather than remaining in alert status. Physical tension releases more readily, respiration settles into deeper rhythms, and the mental state shifts toward restoration rather than vigilance. Those who organize their homes regularly have essentially created environments that actively support their psychological well-being. Their spaces function as external regulators for their nervous systems, continuously delivering messages of stability that body and mind absorb without conscious effort. Your space speaks the arrangement of a living environment, communicates something about the person who created it. Beyond practical function, the choices made about where objects sit, how surfaces appear, and what items receive prominent display reflect internal values and preferences that words might never convey directly. Those who love organizing often experience their homes as extensions of their inner lives. The positioning of photographs, the coordination of colors across a room, the selection of what stays visible versus what gets stored away, all carry personal significance. These decisions transform functional spaces into reflections of character that visitors may notice and residents feel continuously. Researchers recognize this phenomenon as the tendency for humans to construct surroundings that correspond with internal self-concepts. A person who values simplicity creates spaces with clean lines and minimal objects. Someone who treasures memories surrounds themselves with meaningful items arranged thoughtfully. Another who prizes efficiency designs systems where everything occupies logical positions that support daily routines. This connection between space and self explains why organizing feels creative rather than merely practical for many people. The activity involves aesthetic judgment, problem-solving, and the translation of abstract preferences into concrete, physical arrangements. Each organizing decision represents a small act of authorship, writing personal values into the tangible world where they can be seen and inhabited daily. The emotional investment that organizers place in their spaces reflects this identity connection. Disruption to carefully arranged environments feels jarring not because of inconvenience but because it disturbs something that carries personal meaning. The reaction resembles what happens when someone criticizes a creative project rather than when they simply relocate an object to a different location. Understanding this dimension of organizing reveals why the activity generates such strong positive feelings for those who engage in it regularly. They are not simply putting things in places. They're constructing environments that reflect who they are and who they want to become. The organized home serves as both representation and aspiration, showing current values while shaping the daily experience of living. Present moment focus. The repetitive physical motions involved in organizing produce a psychological effect that quiets mental noise without requiring seated contemplation or breathing exercises. The body engages with familiar patterns while attention narrows to immediate tasks. And the internal dialogue that normally fills awareness gradually fades as tangible work occupies cognitive resources. Folding fabric, categorizing belongings, wiping surfaces until they shine, and returning objects to designated locations all share a common quality. They demand enough attention to occupy the mind without requiring complex problem solving that might generate stress. This middle ground between boredom and challenge creates conditions where thoughts about past regrets or future worries lose their grip on attention. Those who find organizing deeply satisfying often describe entering a state where time perception shifts and external concerns fade. They begin with the intention to spend 15 minutes tidying a single area and discover an hour has passed without awareness of its movement. This absorption indicates engagement with the activity at a level that excludes the rumination and worry that normally populate quiet moments. The sensory dimensions of organizing contribute to this immersive quality. The texture of clean cloth against skin, the visual transformation of spaces from cluttered to clear, the sounds of items settling into their proper locations, and even the scent of cleaning products all anchor awareness in immediate physical experience. These sensory inputs compete successfully against abstract thoughts for attention, pulling focus back to the present whenever it begins to drift. Psychologists recognize this state as flow, condition of optimal engagement where skill level matches challenge level and self-consciousness temporarily dissolves. Organizing provides accessible entry into flow states because it offers clear goals, immediate feedback, and adjustable difficulty. Anyone can find their appropriate level of challenge simply by selecting which areas to address and how thoroughly to address them. The mental refreshment that follows organizing sessions reflects the cumulative effect of sustained present moment focus. The mind has rested from its usual patterns of projection and rumination, returning to ordinary awareness with renewed capacity for whatever comes next. Cleared rooms inspire physical environments, influence cognitive function in ways that extend beyond mood and stress levels. The visual information that surrounds a person affects their capacity for original thinking, problem solving, and the generation of new ideas. Individuals drawn to organizing often notice that creative energy flows more freely once their spaces achieve a certain level of order. Cluttered environments divide attention across multiple stimuli simultaneously. The brain allocates processing resources to tracking visible objects, evaluating their relevance, and filtering them from focal awareness. This background activity consumes cognitive bandwidth that might otherwise fuel imaginative thought. When surfaces clear and items find their designated locations, these processing demands diminish and mental resources become available for other purposes. Many people report that ideas arrive more readily in organized spaces than in cluttered ones. Writers find words flowing after tidying their desks. Artists feel inspiration returning once studios achieve visual calm. Professionals discover solutions to stubborn problems after clearing their workspaces of accumulated materials. The connection between external order and internal creativity appears consistently across different fields and personality types. This relationship works in both directions. The act of organizing itself can function as a preliminary creative activity, warming up cognitive systems through decision-making and aesthetic judgment, choosing where items belong, evaluating what stays and what goes, and designing systems that support daily routines, all engage the same mental faculties that creative work requires. Organizing becomes a gateway activity that prepares the mind for more demanding creative tasks. The accumulated energy that builds when creative impulses lack direction often finds temporary outlet through organizing. Arranging physical objects provides a channel for mental activity that might otherwise cycle unproductively. Once that energy produces visible results, it frequently transforms into motivation for other projects. The organized space then supports continued creative effort by removing visual distractions and communicating completion rather than disorder. Individuals who organize before beginning creative work have discovered an effective preparation ritual that clears both physical space and mental capacity simultaneously. Shaped by history, the relationship a person develops with organizing often traces back to experiences from their earliest years. Childhood environments shape expectations about how physical spaces should look and feel, establishing templates that persist into adulthood and influence behavior in ways that may never reach conscious awareness. The pull toward organizing, or the resistance against it, frequently carries emotional weight rooted in formative experiences. Children raised in volatile households where emotional climates shifted without warning frequently develop strong attachments to structured spaces as adults. When interpersonal dynamics felt uncertain and limits remained undefined, the physical environment offered something that relationships could not provide. A neatly arranged bedroom, or an organized collection of belongings, became a domain where reliability was possible, even when everything else felt turbulent. The child discovered that while people remained unpredictable, objects stayed where they were placed. For these individuals, organizing in adulthood represents a continuation of coping strategies that served genuine protective functions during formative years. The activity still provides what it always provided, a sense of agency and predictability in a world that once offered neither. The comfort they derive from ordered surroundings connects to deep emotional memories of finding stability through physical arrangement when other forms of stability remained unavailable. Their nervous systems learned early that environmental order meant safety, and that learning persists. The opposite pattern also emerges from childhood experience. Those raised in households where tidiness carried excessive weight or where disorder brought harsh consequences sometimes develop aversion to organizing that persists throughout life. The activity triggers associations with judgment, inadequacy, or loss of autonomy, rather than the positive feelings that others experience. Their avoidance reflects emotional conditioning rather than laziness or indifference to their surroundings. For them, cluttered spaces may actually feel more comfortable, because they represent freedom from the rigid standards that once caused distress. Some individuals grew up in homes where caregivers used cleaning as punishment, or where affection was withheld until spaces met impossible standards. These experiences create complicated relationships with organizing that blend desire for order with resentment of the activity itself. They may cycle between intense organizing sessions and prolonged periods of avoidance, never finding the steady rhythm that others enjoy. Understanding these developmental roots helps explain why reactions to organizing vary so dramatically between individuals. The same activity that brings profound comfort to one person triggers anxiety in another. And both responses make complete sense when viewed through the lens of early experience. Neither represents a character flaw or superior approach to living. Both represent nervous systems shaped by specific circumstances and responding accordingly. Those who feel compelled to organize benefit from recognizing what the activity provides beyond practical outcomes. The emotional dimensions of the behavior often carry significance that exceeds the surface-level goal of creating tidy spaces. Awareness of these deeper motivations allows for more intentional engagement with organizing, transforming an automatic response into a conscious choice that honors both present needs and historical origins. What science shows? Neuroscience provides measurable evidence for what organizers experience subjectively. Brain imaging studies reveal that visual disorder activates stress responses while organized environments produce the opposite effect. The feelings of relief and calm that follow tidying sessions correspond to actual biological changes occurring within the nervous system rather than mere psychological preference. Cortisol, the hormone associated with stress, decreases when people spend time in orderly environments. Research participants showed lower cortisol levels after organizing tasks compared to before beginning them. This reduction explains the physical sensation of accumulated pressure dissolving that many describe after completing organizing projects. Muscles soften and breathing deepens as the visual field simplifies and the brain stops receiving signals of unresolved tasks demanding attention. The visual system plays a significant role in this process. Eyes constantly scan surroundings and transmit information to brain regions responsible for threat assessment and resource allocation. Cluttered environments generate continuous low-level alerts that maintain the nervous system in a state of mild vigilance. Organized spaces reduce these alerts, allowing the body to shift from readiness mode into restoration mode. The completion of organizing tasks also engages reward pathways in the brain. Each finished area generates neurochemical responses that reinforce the behavior and create motivation to continue. This explains why organizing can become self-sustaining once started, with momentum building as completed sections accumulate and the brain receives repeated signals of accomplishment. Some individuals process emotional experiences through physical activity rather than verbal expression. For them, organizing serves as a form of bodily emotional regulation. The scrubbing, folding, and arranging movements allow feelings to discharge through action when words feel inadequate or unavailable. The scientific validation of these experiences matters because it confirms that the benefits of organizing extend beyond mere preference or personality quirk. Genuine physiological processes underlie the satisfaction that organizers report. Their bodies and brains respond to environmental order in ways that produce real improvements in well-being, stress levels, and emotional regulation. Release through decluttering, the act of removing items from a living space, carries psychological weight that exceeds the practical benefits of having fewer possessions. Each decision about which objects remain and which depart involves an emotional reckoning, a moment of evaluating not just belongings, but the meanings and memories attached to them. Possessions accumulate associations over time. A shirt unworn for years still represents the person who bought it or the occasion when it was acquired. Books never finished still carry the intention to read them someday. Sorting through these items requires engaging with the emotions they carry, which explains why the process can stir feelings that seem disproportionate to the task. The decision to remove an object often symbolizes readiness to release something internal as well. Donating garments that no longer fit acknowledges that an earlier chapter has closed. Discarding materials from abandoned projects accepts that certain plans will not materialize. These acts of physical release parallel emotional transitions happening beneath the surface. This symbolic dimension explains why decluttering produces feelings of renewal that seem excessive relative to the simple act of removing objects from a space. The person has not merely reduced their possessions, they have processed emotions, made decisions about identity, and demonstrated readiness to embrace what comes next, rather than remaining anchored to what came before. The cleared space represents presence of intention, rather than mere absence of objects.